All right, God bless everybody. It's that time of year that kind of in between pre-spawn for some fish, spawn for some fish, and post-spawn for others, at least around where I live. The other day, the last video you saw me post, it's the month of April, pretty common to have a hard time getting bites on a lot of different lures. But I'm going to talk a little bit about probably one of the best producing baits this time of year, and will carry over into summer. Honestly, this little technique, a lot of people talk about it, and it goes throughout the year, but it is really successful, in my opinion, once that water starts clearing up, especially somewhere like Cumberland, Wood Creek, a lot of your clear lakes, when they get to a point where a lot of people start struggling with fish. Usually once it gets above about 65, I love topwater. But for a consistent bite after 10 or 11 o'clock in the day, the best thing to do is to go to some form of finesse worm. The old ribbon tail worms, when I was a kid, they were very popular. They used to be just a little curly tail at the end, kind of like a same tail, kind of like a grub has, almost like that. But they were big time fish catchers, okay? Especially when you were fishing in that hot water. Well, they're actually very good in very clear water. One of the techniques that a lot of people don't realize that can be just as successful as a shaky head, and we're just talking about something that you're dragging along the bottom a lot of times. A lot of times they'll hit a bait like this on the way down. So it's very important that you have sensitive line, sensitive rod, be aware of what you're doing. This isn't a technique kind of like your crankbait that you're just reeling along and all of a sudden you get a bite. They'll actually sometimes hit some type of finesse worm and they'll pick it up and they'll all of a sudden drop it. So you do have a short window sometimes. There's sometimes that, I'll be honest with you, they'll grab a hold of this and they'll swim away with it, and it seems like you could lead them around like a little dog in a backyard. But somebody hollering over there, I guess. But I want to talk a little bit about it. I want to talk about the setup. I want to talk about the little mindset behind it. Just kind of the way that I do it, because I know a lot of people that maybe their first time, maybe you hear all kinds of videos. I'm going to try to touch on a few things that a lot of people don't. Okay. Number one, the way to break this down is simply you have a weight and a hook and a worm, straight tail worm. That's what I use most of the time. Straight tail worm has a little bit of movement in the water, a little bit of movement while you're shaking it, but that's the concept behind it. Okay, it has a weight and it has a hook. The thing about the hook is it's just a round bend hook. This one in particular has a screw lock towards the head of it. Now that's what I'm familiar the most with. Now I am going to start experimenting a little bit with the ones that you slide on, that kind of has a little keeper mount up the bottom. I'll talk about that later on if I see a need that it definitely helps. But the screw lock is probably the one that's the most popular to me. I usually always go with these little worms with a 1/4 ounce. I know you can get lighter. I know a lot of people throw a lighter weight. I usually don't. I usually throw a 1/4 ounce, because I can throw a 1/4 ounce in a foot of water and drag it around, and I can throw it in 20 feet of water and drag it around. You're saying, wow, you drag that 1/4 ounce? And yes, sir. There's a lot of times, especially in that real clear water, I'll drag that little 1/4 ounce in 20 foot of water and 30 foot of water. It doesn't really bother me. Why? Because the bite's slow and I'm trying to get a bite, so I'm slowing down is the whole point behind it. I usually take that one there, just like I did to screw it in. I push it all the way through the worm right where it's supposed to be, and then I'll bring it up and I'll skin hook it just a little bit so that it kind of looks like that, kind of straight. A little bit more about this setup though. Honestly, what you can do if you run out of these and you think, man, they're getting expensive anymore to get any type of bait, period. You can get just a regular hook, whatever size you like and the size you prefer on these little shaky heads. You can get a regular round bend hook. They call them just a regular worm hook. And you can get a 3/16, you can get a 1/4 ounce head, you can get all kinds of little bullet weights. And basically they're the same thing, except for these right here where they fall in one piece all together. It makes it a little bit easier to work, a little bit easier to detect strikes, makes them a little more sensitive to be able to have it all compact into one thing. You know, you're not sitting there trying to thread everything on, then tie it and then go. This right here is compact all in one system. The line that I use for this, a lot of people, when it comes to spinning rods, that's probably one of the biggest debates, okay? Everybody wants to talk about braid to fluorocarbon, or everybody wants to talk fluorocarbon. I've done both. You'll see some of the very first videos that I ever made, I had braid on most of my setups because I was fishing out of kayak. And in that kayak, I only had 3 rods. I had 3 spinning rods. And that's what I did. I mean, I used them. Do they work? Sure, they work. They'll do just fine. I caught lots of fish on them. But as I started being blessed with my boat and I started getting out and doing other things, I realized how much I had missed having the bait casting setups, especially throwing spinner baits, throwing crankbaits, throwing different baits. Yes, you can throw them on a spinning outfit, crankbaits as well, but it's more efficient, a little bit easier on us, me specifically, throw it on a bait casting outfit. It's just easier to control. So when it comes to this type of setup, when it comes to shaky head or using a spinning rod, anymore, I don't use the braid anymore. I got away from the braid. I'm going to tell you the reason why I got away from the braid. Everybody has their own opinion, but I'm going to tell you why I got away from the braid. I use 10-pound fluorocarbon. I use Seaguar. I used to use a 2500 series reel. I quit doing that because the 10-pound line, the diameter on a 2500 Sedona or a Sahara reel, it was almost like it was almost too big for that size, the diameter spool, okay? Because it has a smaller spool that your line fits on. I went to a 3000 series in the Shimano line. Now this one here, the name of it is Nasci, okay? Nasci. That's the name of this, and it's a C3000. I went to a 3000 size reel. This one's pretty light, so there's not much difference in the weight. The reason I went to that was because the diameter of the spool is bigger. Therefore, it holds 8 and 10-pound line a lot bigger, a lot better. I can cast it a lot further when I'm reeling in. Just because you're dealing with fluorocarbon, even that red label, you're going to have a little bit of line memory, even with fluorocarbon. I don't have nearly the issues with the wind and everything else that I did when I had my 2500 series spinning reels. I heard a lot of people talk about it. I sold those other spinning reels last year at some point to get other bait casters and to add things to the boat. When I rebought, I made up my mind that I was going to rebuy one 3000 spool reel, and I was going to just try it and see. Fell in love with it. Night and day difference. Okay, so my suggestion is, if you're going to use a spinning rod and you're going to use some type of for shaky or whatever you do, really consider the size of line you're going to use on that reel. If it's going to be 10-pound test fluorocarbon or 8, I'm telling you, a lot of people go to that 2500 because they're like, oh, it's smaller, it's lighter. A lot of people go down to 1,000. Oh, but it's so much simpler. I'm telling you, there's not that much difference in weight, considering how much less struggle you have with the line memory and with the ability of the smoother drag, and also the ability to cast and to bring line in. Okay, I'm just telling you, it saved me a world of trouble going to that 3,000 spool. Another thing we're going to talk about, the rod that I use. No, you don't have to have this brand of rod, okay? Please understand that. This is just a rod that I've been blessed with. I've gone through a lot of different manufacturers. This is the manufacturer that I prefer, because when I go out there, I like having equipment that I can depend on, that's sensitive, and that I'm not going to have to worry about all kinds of other issues. Okay, this is what I've gotten used to. This is what I like. This is a G Loomis E6X. Bought this used at a store that had them marked down because they were used. Okay, so I didn't get it brand new. You can actually still pick these up brand used just about anywhere. This one here is an 843S. That's a jig and worm rod. Okay, so it's a medium heavy, fast action, rated for 8 to 15 pound line, anywhere from 3/16 to 5/8 ounce lure. Now you're sitting there thinking, well, wait a minute, I'm going to throw a shaky head that's 1/4 ounce. Why in the world would I want a rod that's stiff like that? Well, if you get a chance to go pick up one of these rods, the rod at the tip, you think about this, okay? Yes, you want the rod to have a little bit of action. You want to have it a little bit of soft tip. But what a lot of us tend to forget, and this is something that I learned, okay, over time. Okay, so you're trying to take this plastic right here and drive this round bend hook through it and into the fish's mouth. A lot of times you're hooking the fish right through the roof of the mouth, okay? A lot of people are going to say, hey, for a shaky head, I need a medium action rod. That's just the best rod there is for it. I used to be the same way. Sure, if you're going to use 20-pound test braid, I would say yes. And then you're going to use like a 12 or 15-pound leader, I'd say sure. The reason is because you have less give in the line, so therefore that bow in your rod. What I'm doing is I'm using 10-pound test fluorocarbon straight to my reel. That's all I have spooled on is 10-pound test fluorocarbon. I want the medium heavy action, because if I was fishing a bait caster and I was throwing a Texas rig worm, I wouldn't want a medium rod. You would say, well, no, a medium rod would be more for a crankbait. Well, it's the same concept with these little shaky heads. A lot of people want to sit around and throw them on a medium action rod, and then they don't get a good enough hook set when they pull back. And then they get upset. A lot of times you're going to face too with shaky head. Sure, it catches a lot of fish, but a lot of times I'm fishing it in super clear water. It's 20 feet deep, maybe even deeper than that, where I'm dragging this little shaky head around. Or I'm dragging a little Texas rig with a little 1/4 ounce weight around. I need to put some backbone in behind that, and I need to drive it. No, I'm not setting the hook to explode and jerk them out of the water, but I'm still trying to drive this hook, okay? So it's not a hook setting like a jig, but still you're trying to drive a hook in. It's a little bit different than when you're throwing a crankbait or something. So that's the reason why I go with a medium heavy rod. What worm do I use? 90% of the time, I use a Zoom trick worm. 90% of the time. Have for years. Even on my Texas rigs. Have for years. I've got a friend of mine that lives and dies by the shaky head. Okay? I've seen more big smallmouth put in the boat by a Zoom trick worm than I have any other bait that's been made. That's just in my time as far as worm goes. You can fish all the brands you want to. I've tried different ones. I like several different ones. I like the little Z-Man, little Ned rigs and all those things. They're all fun to use too. But when you get into these type of worms on a shaky head, this is my absolute favorite worm. I've caught, I couldn't tell you how many 4 and 5 pound largemouths on shaky heads with just something simple as a trick worm. Color, that's up to you. Everybody has their own color. Everybody likes taking something and usually dipping the tails. You hear everybody talk about it. I'll tell you something that I like, and this is just a little side tip. I've gotten to where I buy these little pins. Why? Because my boat's not brand new, but the last thing I want is that falling all over my boat and my tackle box. I've ruined tackle boxes before with them little jars of Spike It. That's why I just buy the pins, I rub it on the tips, and I'm done. If this runs out, I got another one in the boat. Next time I stop at the bait shop, I'll buy another one. This right here works just as good. That's what I like using on mine anyway. They sell them in several different colors. Just about anywhere they sell Spike It, they sell those little Spike It markers. So, now we're going to talk about the line. Why do I like straight fluorocarbon line? Believe it or not, there's several different reasons. Number one is sensitivity. I wouldn't want monofilament because monofilament stretches too much. It dampens down the sensitivity. A lot of times I'm around rock and everything else. Fluorocarbon just gives a little bit better vibration in the water. Another reason I want fluorocarbon is if you use braid, and I did it for years. If you use braid and you throw it out, it is super sensitive. But I'm going to be honest with you. If you hang up braid and you got 15, 20 mile an hour winds, I would rather break this off of a rock somewhere by holding my rod straight than to have it break my rod. I've actually had that happen. Okay, so that's another reason why I use straight fluorocarbon all the way. Another reason is I fish places like Cumberland and there's tons of rocks. There's some days I go all day with one head. There's other days that I may switch out, lose 10 of them. What does that mean? That means that I have to retie a lot. So when I used to use a leader, if you have like a 10-foot leader or a 15-foot leader, which a lot of people do because of the clear water, if you snap it off and you lost 5 feet, well, you're good for one more loss. And then you got to retie what? You got to retie your main line to your leader line. Then you got to tie it onto your bait. Then you go back to fishing. The whole time you've been doing what? Some of you may have spot lock, and that may be great for you, but I don't. So I don't want to spend all my time retying my bait. I just want to tie my simple knot. I want to put my worm back on. I want to go back to fishing. That's one of the main reasons why I use it. Why? Because I may click this off and I may put a different one on because I bent the hook out. Throughout the day, this is something that a lot of people don't do. Throughout the day, if I'm fishing around those rocks a lot, because I'm keeping this in the rocks. If I feel this is frayed, I just cut it off and retie. If you do that with a leader, after a few times, you got to cut it off and the leader. You got to keep up with two things. I don't. All I do is pick up my rod and I go fishing. It was too much a headache for me. Plus, I know a lot of you out there are great with it. I'm not the best at it. To me, 2 knots is twice the trouble. It's just a chance of me losing another fish. So I just tie the one. A lot of people are probably going to comment, oh, I've done it for years and I've caught the biggest fish ever. Congratulations. You probably won't find me doing it. I'm out there just having fun. I'm out there just trying to catch fish and enjoy the day. That's why I'm giving the advice that, hey, if it was me, this is what I do. I just put straight line on it and I'm done. Another thing I like about that 3,000 size spool, that has 200 yards on that 10-pound test. I almost get 155 yards on that spool. Am I going to need it all? No, I'm not. But I shouldn't have to spool that up but one time a year and I should be good. Unless I get a wind knot or something like that. And if I do, it's not that big a deal. That right there's only about $15 a spool, so I should be okay. But that's my setup. That's my take on a finesse worm. You're going to see me using it quite a bit because of the time of year that it is. It's just another way to get bites. Are you always going to catch monsters? No. But just like the other day fishing with that drop shot, I mean, I caught that pretty much 4-pound largemouth. Could have very easily been on that shaky head. I've seen a lot of big fish caught on shaky heads. I've caught several nice fish on shaky heads, so I know it's possible. Anyway, Hope that blesses somebody. Hope that gives you just a little bit about that setup. Anybody have any questions? Anybody have any comments? Anybody have any suggestions they want to put below? You're more than welcome to. Anybody has any prayer requests? I hope everybody's okay. You're more welcome to put them below. I'll be happy to help you pray for whatever you need. Pray for me. You know, it's not always easy going to work every day and then trying to take a day and going out and going fishing and sitting down and trying to make the videos. And I enjoy them, don't get me wrong, but some days even older guys struggle throughout the day. So just keep me in your prayers as well. I really enjoy sharing. I really enjoy passing along things as I learn them, but I also enjoy the comments and the things that you all teach me. It's a blessing to me. Anyway, God bless you all. Don't forget, Jesus loves you. Y'all have a great day.